We had a life group before I went into the ministry. Karen and I were members of Trinity Fellowship before I pastored it. I was in business with my family. We had a life group, and we had a couple in our life group, and he was probably 27, 28, and he had a new business. And every week when they came to life group, they asked for prayer. And we prayed for him. And his business became successful, very successful. During the time that we were praying for his business, it was always on the brink of failure for about a year, year and a half. They were very humble. They were the first people there, the last people to leave. But the more successful his business became, the more arrogant he became. And the more successful he didn't just dress nicer, he dressed worldly, if you know what I'm talking about. He just looked, he acted arrogantly, worldly. They became less and less frequent members of our group and of the church. And one day I took him out. And I said, hey, because I was in business just like him. And I said, I want to talk to you about something. And I just never forget the way he was looking at me across the table. I said, you've changed. You're not the same. And I just told him, you used to be so humble, you used to be so hungry for God, but money has changed you. I thought he was going to attack me at the table. And I was being my sweet self. I'm always so sweet, as y'all can tell. I wasn't being mean. I wasn't being forceful or self-righteous with him. I was just telling him, I'm worried about you. I never saw him again. They left the church. They left our life group. I never saw him again. But they divorced shortly afterwards. And everything else I heard about that man was bad. About the time that we were getting married, Karen's dad was starting a business. He was an insurance salesman in Amarillo, but he was starting a business down here, a corporate insurance business, selling corporate insurance to Fortune 500 companies. And he struggled for several years. But when we were about in our mid-20s, we married when we were 19 years old. When we were about in our mid-20s, his business just took off and became very successful, and they became wealthy. Karen's parents did. But the wealthier he became, the more humble and godly he became. The exact opposite of the story I'm telling you. Money not only didn't change him and make him worldly, the more wealth he had, the more responsibility he felt to God to steward that wealth properly. And his dependence on God, Karen's dad, I've always respected this about him, his dependence on God, Karen's mom and dad, increased with more money because their money was a blessing. It wasn't something that was in the world luring them away from God. The question is not how much money we have. The question is how much does money have us? And is it compromising our dependence upon God the Father? And I want to say something to you. You have the perfect Father, and He's filthy rich. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And He loves to bless His children more than you love to bless your children. Jesus said, if you, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Heavenly Father give to you? He calls us evil compared to God. And I'm saying we don't need the stinking world. We have God as our Father. But as much as the Antichrist spirit is in the world right now trying to oppose everything of God, the Antichrist spirit is in the world right now trying to seduce us as God's people into a worldly system to keep us from serving and trusting God. And I say we must expose him and stand against him and live our faith right before Jesus.